Hello there, everybody, and welcome to episode 16 of my team career mode. This episode is the Italian Grand Prix in Monza. Quick look back at Zandvoort last week, the Dutch Grand Prix. We managed to sneak some points. We had a really good start. Obviously, our pace did drop off, though, so still happy with 9th position. Quick update in terms of our vehicle performance. As you can see, we jumped ahead of Williams, and we are quite close behind Aston Martin and AlphaTauri, especially when a couple more of those upgrades do come through. Heading into Monza, we are going to change around our power unit components a little bit. As you can see, trying to micromanage these as much as possible. And preferably, we don't really want to be taking on any new units throughout the year, unless, of course, we do have a poor qualifying session, and we're not going to lose too many positions anyway. So it's all about just managing these and ensuring that we don't have super severe wear heading into the rest of the year. This was before qualifying, so just changing these components around. Actually in the garage. So I made a big mistake and forgot to change my power unit components in between practice and qualifying, meaning that I lost a bit of time. Now, there was no penalties associated with those changes at that time, just the time penalty, which means we only get one flying lap here in Q1, so we can't afford any mistakes whatsoever because we have no opportunity to salvage a second lap. Obviously, we start off in P22, our teammate in Jack Aitken, P21. Not giving me too much confidence that we'll be able to find a lot of pace here on this track. We're not the fastest in a straight line, and again, the AI are quite powerful in a straight line, so I'm really not expecting too much here at Monza, but we'll give it our all. We were pushing pretty hard in practice to try and find the edge of grip on this car, especially through the les modes. I was able to find a bit of time over the course of the weekend. But again, a lot of straight lines, and our speed is not incredible. I think our powertrain is about mid-pack, but even still, it doesn't really feel like it. Anyway, now through Ascari. Pretty clean run through there. Not having to extend the track too much. I'm really just going to have to wait till we get to the line to see as to how we are going to place as we go into Parabolica now as fast as we can, shifting up to 6th, using quite a bit of track there, now straight lining it to the start-finish line, and it will be P18. So probably what we kind of expected going into this session, to be completely honest, and we'll have to try and find up ground during the race. The beauty of Monza is slipstream heaven, DRS trains, so we should be in with a shot to stay with the pack. Jack Aitken qualified P17. He narrowly missed out, actually, on Q2. So I've been really impressed with his performances so far, and we weren't too far behind him. But because we are starting so low, we are actually going to take on more power unit components, or actually change our components. In hindsight, I really should have just put completely fresh components on instead of changing them around. It was a little bit stupid in hindsight, but it is what it is, and we'll probably be starting at the back of the field.
We're back in Italy once again for another round of the Formula One World Championship. And what a great race is in store for us today, here at the oldest circuit on the calendar, which hosted its first race all the way back in 1922. With top speeds reaching 215 miles per hour, only a few places can challenge Monza's crown as the fastest track in Formula One. Hard braking zones going into the 3 chicanes make up the majority of the 11 corners on this 3.6-mile circuit. And just in case the slipstream wasn't enough, 2 DRS zones will help encourage some close action. It's time to take a look at our starting grid for today's race. Charles Leclerc lines up on pole position, and Lando Norris lines up alongside. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Perez, Bottas, Fernando Alonso and Sainz. They've taken a grid penalty. Russell, Joe, Hamilton and Pierre Gasly. Verstappen, Vettel, Mick Schumacher. They'll be starting further back after an earlier grid penalty. And Stroll. Ocon, they've taken a grid penalty. Ricciardo, Yuki Tsunoda and Alex Albon. Aitken, Latifi, Magnussen, and Mir. It's almost time for the lights to go out, so let's head down to the track where preparations are underway. Anthony Davidson, a very warm welcome to you as you join me in the commentary box for today's event. Why don't we discuss McLaren? What do you make of their performance so far this season?
Well, the atmosphere within that team seems very positive at the moment. Everyone seems like they're in great spirits and having a lot of fun doing what they do, and that's definitely contributed to the performances we've seen.
On the grid then for the Italian Grand Prix, and as you could see in the pre-race graphic, a whole bunch of cars are taking penalties in this race. I'm still scratching my head as to why I didn't take fresh power unit components at all, but I'm sure we'll probably have another opportunity throughout the year when we have poor qualifying, if we need additional components to do that then. Anyway, in terms of the strategy, the team's suggesting in the personalized strategy to go softs onto mediums, but I figured that being out of sync on Monza on pitch strategy is probably not the smartest idea, because if I fall out of a DRS train, then I'm going to fall behind everyone. So we're just going to do what the rest of the field is doing, mediums onto hards, and we'll see whether or not that strategy does pay off in the long run. Again, we are starting in dead last P22. And it's all about trying to find as many positions as we possibly can. Conditions a little bit overcast. So maybe tire temps will be a little bit of an issue due to the nature of so many straight lines for them to cool down here. So important that, especially in the formation, like we do get a lot of heat and energy into these tires as we look to pit up and actually angle our car towards the inside for turn 1. Unfortunately, only green parking, so not as optimal as it possibly could have been, but nonetheless, all focus now on the 5 red lights, and out they go. Looking to get a good initial launch here. But we get a kicker wheel spin in 5th gear, just using overtake a little bit too early, and any opportunity to dive bomb down the inside now lost. They look to maybe trail Magnussen, but it is 3 wide into the first and second corners. Very tricky to find positions. Now tucked behind Sonoda. He's in P19. Don't quite know where Gasly is, but AlphaTauri is really the team that has a target on their back, at least from us. We need to keep gapping them in the Constructors' Championship for that sponsor bonus. Sonoda will stay ahead, at least for now, as we narrowly avoid contact through turns 4 and 5, and now through the Lesmos of 6 and 7. Does look like the cars ahead might start to gap us a little bit, but the race really does come alive when DRS is online, so we're going to be quite aggressive with our overtake to ensure that we do stay within at least a second. And it seems to be working relatively well, at least for now. Through Ascari, and not looking too bad even with a full fuel load. Now down the back straight, actually gaining a little bit here on Sonoda and Latifi ahead in the Williams, and our run through Parabolica not too bad as well. Sonoda checks up, and we should get a good run on him onto the start finish line. Latifi dives into the pits, and we are continuing to gain ground now on the AlphaTauri, up to 335 kilometers per hour as we brake as late as we dare into the first corner. We make contact, or at least Sonoda makes contact with us. I'm pretty sure I went as wide as I possibly could, and that's a little bit of floor damage now to contend with for the rest of the race, and that's not going to be fun, but it shouldn't be too much of a loss around Monza. Albon, though, gets a good jump on us, our bad run out of the chicane, but unfortunately for him, we retain our position in 18th. But we don't want to squabble around too much, because we'll find a lot of time is lost. Big pack of cars up ahead, though. Huge amount of battling still taking place. Ocon, Magnussen side by side. Contact made to the back of Stroll. Ricciardo slow. Vettel, Gasly, Schumacher as well. This is a huge bunch of cars battling for position on the edge of the points. But I see Gasly up ahead, and I know that I want to get ahead of him as quickly as possible to deny him any opportunity of points. It gets really messy there through Ascari, but we get through unscathed. That was very scary in real time, because we wanted to be aggressive, but equally we also didn't want to take any damage, knowing that would be a really, really crucial loss, because we'd have to pit, we'd be out of sync, and that would be our race essentially over without a safety car. We get through though, as I said, P14 as we head on to the start of lap 3 in DRS now enabled. Onto the 6th lap, and Sonoda's actually jumped back ahead of us. So our pace now beginning to drop off a little bit, and we're finding it difficult to stay with the pack ahead. Jack Aiken, though, with good pace behind, and we're going to let him through relatively easily. Try to tuck behind him and try to conserve perhaps a bit of overtake by employing the drag reduction system. And yeah, Aiken, again, just superior straight line speed. It was pretty difficult to contend with him and to keep him behind, and I'm not going to battle. That would just be silly for the team. And if he has any opportunity perhaps to make his way forward and into the points, I'm not going to get in the way of that. I don't care about my own Drivers' Championship this year. It's all about the Constructors' title, or at least Constructors' points for that sponsor bonus. As you can see, Aiken now is pulling away a little bit. We'll see how much of a gap we find back with DRS. About 6.5 tenths as we enter the straight, and by the end of it, heading into Ascari. We only find about 1.5 tenths, maybe 2 tenths at best, so not ideal, but it is at least something, and it should mean that we can, again, bank up our overtake, continue to use DRS, and that should be more than enough to keep us within reach, and then use that overtake later on, perhaps after the first phase of pit stops, to find some track position. Onto the end of the 7th lap, and as we head on to the 8th, again, as you can see, still in DRS range, and in fact, we're actually gaining pretty significantly now, quite tucked in on that slipstream, but Aiken again does push that gap back out onto lap 12, and he actually runs into a little bit of traffic here. Guan Yu Zhou and Sonoda up ahead potentially will hold up Aiken here. Gives us an opportunity to get into this train though and see if we can find some ground relative to the rest of the field. Continuing to use DRS, and as you can see, our overtake, a lot of banked up energy in the battery. We'll use it just to stay within touching distance, but again, we don't want to find time a loss here. Decent run through Ascari. They're aggressively attacking that corner, using a lot of the track on exit. Not the best of runs though, so we are forced to use some overtake. Again, we're just trying to stay within a second, preferably half a second, because that's when the slipstream's at its best. Oh! Huge group of cars up ahead, and Sonoda checks up. We have to go wide onto the sand, and as we rejoin, we just absolutely clatter Sonoda. And that was such a messy exit there of Parabolica. It happened so quickly, I don't even really know what happened. We'll need a replay for that. As you can see up ahead, Stroll, Gasly, Ocon squabbling for position, going really, really slow, and then checking up a whole bunch of cars behind. And then Sonoda forced to check. We go wide, and as we rejoin onto the track, that change of surface meant that we just completely clattered the side of poor Sonoda, who did nothing wrong here. As you can see, he had to brake and short shift down as Guan Yu Zhou was forced to slow, and then his race just over in a flash. Didn't even know what hit him. Luckily for us, though, we are able to continue on, and after the safety car comes back into pit lane, the racing resumes. We changed our front wing. We're now onto the hard compound tyre. At the very back of the remaining runners, though, P20. And the rest of the race will be to see whether or not we can find something, but it seems incredibly unlikely. Still rattled a little bit from that crash. Quite violent. We'll soldier on though. Stuck behind another group of cars, and we'll be hoping that we don't have another huge crash. I still, yeah, can't believe we even survived the last one. But anyway, on to lap 18 now. And more battling up ahead. The AI not fearing away from engagements. Aiken in the midst of it up ahead, and we're cheering him on to find as much ground as he possibly can. We jump Magnussen though. So pretty happy with that move, and we have another Haas in our slides. Schumacher up ahead. Like most of the rest though, we need to be careful of how much energy we do use. We only have about 30% of the battery remaining at this point in time. Still though, on the lead up to the Lesmos, we get a decent run onto Schumacher, and we show the nose down the inside, but he defends well. Aiken going side by side with Albon means that we are getting held up here, and that means Magnussen can show the nose onto us, but we're able to go wide there on the exit of 7 down the back straight. Aggressive with our overtake. Stay with the pack here and maybe an opportunistic move through Ascari. Yellow flags up ahead though. Don't know exactly what that was for. Perhaps a car behind, but nonetheless, we get through unscathed. And Aitken actually the biggest benefiter out of that entire little duel. Magnussen with superior straight line speed, able to get back past us though. And we're forced to concede that position. So we're back down into position 18. Ricardo behind on the softs, Latifi in P20, Albon to pit. I assume he took some damage. And we're actually aggressive now, back onto Magnussen. Overtake and DRS down the inside. At the very end of the straight though, he is pulling away from us. We look to break deep into the chicane and we cut him off there, not giving him any room to retaliate. And that's us into P16. On to lap 27 though, and unfortunately the cars up ahead did gap us. Aitken 6 seconds up ahead, but we have Hamilton now behind just over a second. He's on the soft tyre compound. Don't know what kind of weird alternate strategy he's on, whether or not it was damage, but he has been finding about 2 or 3 seconds a lap on us for the closing portion of this race, and he's looking very, 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 very racy. We're going to try and keep him behind for a bit of pride and for a bit of fun here on the final lap, but it seems very unlikely that we'll be able to tame that Mercedes as we go defensive into the Lesmos, covering the inside. He looks around the outside, but it's very tricky to make a move stick there. Charles Leclerc crosses the line to win, and we are very, very defensive into the second Lesmo. Hamilton, I don't know if he did make contact. If he didn't, it was very, very close. And you can see just the superior traction and straight line speed that Mercedes has. He will absolutely zip past us before the entry to Ascari, and we cannot defend that. So it looks like it will be P16 here at Monza. Overall, a little bit of a disappointing race, but the fact that we even finished is a minor miracle in itself. That was a huge crash on the exit of Parabolica. I do feel genuinely bad for Sonoda. That's not the way I want to go about winning this constructor battle, but it is what it is. It was a genuine mistake. We do cross the line, P16, no points, so we'll see what we can do going forward. Big R&D developments in the works, so I think the rest of the season is going to be very, very close with those ahead.
Not just victory today then, but the championship as well. What a spectacular season they've had. Congratulations to the whole team. Anthony Davidson, what helped them deliver this result, do you think?
I think it was clear what the main contributing factor out on track was: speed. I know it sounds like an awfully reductive statement, but fast cars win races, and we saw that today with our winner.
Here come our winners now, a thrilling race and a tremendous effort by Ferrari. Their history is well known, so it's no surprise to fans the world over to see them come out on top once again. So let's review the updated driver standings. Charles Leclerc, currently leading the championship standings, extends his lead even further with this result. Let's focus on the driver of the day, Anthony Davidson. Who do you pick?
Let's give it to Esteban Ocon. That was a commanding performance today. Very impressive indeed.
The Constructors' Championship may be a foregone conclusion at the moment, but regardless, let's look at the standings. So then, Ferrari have now moved out of sight and out of reach. It's another triumph for the Italian team as they claim the World Constructors' Championship. Meanwhile, good work from Aston Martin this weekend, who pushed themselves further up the order. After an event like that, who knows what the sport has in store for us next time out? Be sure to join us once again as we continue to bring you all the excitement of Formula One.